Serious, what's the creepiest slash scariest thing you've seen but no one believes you? Didn't see it but heard it. My friends and I got a cheap set of walkie-talkies from Walmart and were playing around with them in the middle of the day. There's a bit of silence as we are trying to figure out the volume, and out of nowhere there's a male voice saying "Mayday, mayday, mayday" that comes through all of our walkie-talkies, and it definitely sounds like it from one of those aircraft headsets. We try to answer back, but there's no response. I called non-emergency, but they said there weren't any reports of distressed aircraft or ships, and even if there were, they couldn't do anything about it. Alternatively, a couple months later I saw a plane with an engine on fire go over my campus, but apparently no one else did. My brother insists that when we were kids, our mom took us to Lax to see a 747 that had crashed onto the tarmac and broken apart. Even though I have absolutely no recollection of this, he said it was burned out, broken into several pieces, and the yellow emergency slides were deployed. It was still smoking, and there was a trail of debris and charred runway behind it. Apparently it was just me, my brother and my mom, despite the fact that we have another brother and two sisters who were still living at home at the time. He says he just remembers watching the plane and all the emergency workers from a chain link fence. This makes zero sense, because first of all, why the hell would our mom take us to see a tragic plane crash? She wasn't that type of person. Second of all, Lax is about an hour drive, which makes it less plausible. And third and fourth of all, my mom, she has passed since, but I asked several times about it, denies that it ever happened. And I have searched, and there were no plane crashes in the area at the time. The weird thing is my brother has a freaky memory. He remembers random odd events even from when he was insanely young, mentioning things with scarily accurate detail that most people that young wouldn't remember. It was around the time that our family took a plane from Lax to Mexico to visit my dad's family. So I just chalk it up to him internalizing some fear from the flight, even though I remember us both being okay about flying. It was, up until this year, I'm 30 now, was 5 at the time, the only time I'd flown in a plane. But the other thing is that for as long as I can remember, I have had intense nightmares of planes crashing. I'm either on the plane, or I'm watching it crash near me. I've since developed an intense fear of flying, not just of flying, but of planes in the air. There is something viscerally unnerving to me seeing these big-ass metal monstrosities flying through the air. It's almost, I don't know how to describe it, but morbidly and deeply disturbing. Anyway, every time I have one of these plane crash nightmares I think or say something like, "Oh my god, it's finally happened after all these years of dreaming about it," simply because of how absolutely real and convincing these dreams are. Sometimes I suspect I'm dreaming, but something will happen that makes me absolutely convinced that this time it's actually happening and I'm not dreaming. The ducked up thing is, if I ever do see a plane crash or survive a plane crash, I will immediately suspect that I'm either trapped in a dream or have died. And I don't know if anyone will be able to convince me otherwise. I have some seriously ducked up issues with sleep and nightmares, though. I should probably see someone about it, because it has seriously impacted my health. Growing up, I had a friend named Adam. He was never able to come out dying the day, only right before all of us kids had to go home for the evening. Adam lived a few houses over, in a house with an overgrown yard. I met his parents once. They were very strange, didn't smile, and obviously didn't want me there. I remember Adam telling me that he was sick. That's why he couldn't play that much. He was a small boy, pale with dark hair. Eventually, Adam stopped showing up altogether, and I eventually moved on. Though I do remember going to his house a couple times to see if he could come play, and his dad just gave me this look before closing the door in my face. Later in life, I asked my sister if she remembered him. She doesn't, and according to my parents, that house was empty the entire time we lived there. I don't know who Adam was. I don't know why I so vividly remember him and his parents. As far as I can tell, he wasn't real, and yet I have perfect memories of him and his parents. When I was 7 or 8, I would have a reoccurring nightmare that one of my dolls came to life, played with me, and then would try to pull me into my closet with her. I'd follow her into the closet at first, But then she'd show me this little door at the back of the closet, and my heart would start to race. I don't know what it was about that door, but I knew something bad would happen. If I went through it, I'd start to struggle and try to pull away. But the doll was too strong and would start pulling me through the door. At this point in the dream, I'd always wake up screaming. The worst part was I had night terrors, so sometimes I'd wake up standing next to my closet. Every night before bed, I'd make my parents make sure there wasn't a little door at the back of my closet. There never was. Anyway, I was talking to my mom the other day and this dream came up. I'm laughing about it and how ridiculously paranoid I was about dolls in that closet. But my mom gets really quiet. She tells me the creepy part of that dream wasn't the doll. It was the fact that there used to be a little door at the back of the closet. But when I was 1 year old, they remodeled the house and put a wall where the door used to be. There's no way I could have remembered that door. But years later, I kept dreaming about it. None of my friends believe this story, but I swear it's true. I grew up on a 2-acre home with plenty of trees and room for an 8 years old to run around. Our house also was heated in winter by a wood fireplace, so we would periodically cut down one of our own trees to save money. Well, for about 2 years, there was a stump less than a foot tall near the house, and at least once a day, without fail, I would see someone standing on the stump. Usually it was out of the corner of my eye, but once or twice I looked directly at him. I always looked away quickly, cause it startled me, and he was gone. But my sister says she experienced the same thing. Nothing ever came of it though. Alright, buckle in. My neighbor was dying of a heart condition about 6 years ago. He knew he was, so he was giving away his valuables to people he trusted with them. Neighbor gave me his tackle box. He loved to fish. I would see him come home from fishing every day and he'd just sit on his porch and skin fish. I just put the tackle box in my closet and didn't really do anything with it, since I don't fish. Anyways, soon after, he passed away in his home. Exactly a week after that, I woke up to the tackle box at the foot of my bed. Weird, but my stepdad likes to dick around. Figured it was him, so I put it back. The next morning, I wake up, it's at the foot of my bed again. So, I ask my stepdad what the deal was, and he had no idea what I was talking about. To test this, I put the tackle box in a spot that he wouldn't find, nor would he attempt to get it, under my bed, all the way in the back against the wall, and I put stuff in front of it to conceal it. Next morning, nothing. Okay, I guess it was him. Didn't give it much thought after that. 3 days pass. I wake up one morning and there it is, at the foot of my bed. Fuck, now I'm starting to freak out. So I did what any rational person would, and I went fishing with it. After I went fishing, I put the tackle box away, and it hasn't moved since then. It's still there. You know what would be cool? Is if you found somebody who really loves to fish, and then pass this tackle box along with the story to go with it. Would probably make your old neighbor happy. Just after high school, maybe 6 months or so after 9 to 11, I was a van driver who drove the meals for Meals on Wheels to the place where they get packaged up and taken for home delivery. Anyway, the delivery van only had AM/FM radio, and I was listening to 92.5 FM. When all of a sudden the station cuts out and a transmission that I can only describe as an American version of a numbers station began playing. It was seemingly random numbers followed by a long period of the same phrase repeated over and over again. The phrase was "they took the crosstown bus," over and over again. None of the other drivers heard it, but man was it creepy to hear. Eventually the regular radio station came back on, and they never mentioned anything about it. I spent one summer in high school living with my aunt and uncle and keeping their 7-year-old daughter for them during the day while they worked. I was up late one night watching TV in the living room. The living room was right off of the kitchen, separated only by an L-shaped bar. I saw my cousin, out of the corner of my eye, walk down the hallway from her room into the kitchen. It was way past her bedtime, so I told her she needed to go back to bed. When I didn't hear her answer, I got up and walked around the bar and into the kitchen. There was no one there. I checked under the bar to see if she was hiding from me, and there was no one there, and nowhere else. She cold gone from the kitchen. I walked down the hallway to her room, and she was fast asleep, snoring. So there was no way it was her. It baffled me and freaked me out, because if I didn't see my cousin, who was the little girl that walked into the kitchen. Several years later, I was talking to my aunt and she nonchalantly brings up the ghost in her house. I laughed it off and she said, "No, I'm serious. We have a ghost. Your uncle and I both have seen her and heard her. We call her Giggles, because we hear her giggling. We usually only see her in the hallway before she disappears." All of a sudden, I remembered the disappearing girl in the kitchen. I asked her what her ghost looked like. She said she had blonde hair with braids and wore a white dress. My cousin is blonde. On the night in question, I thought I'd seen my cousin in a nightgown walk down the hallway, but apparently it was the ghost that resides in my aunt's house. Two stories here, both about my grandma. Near the end, my grandma had trouble controlling her bowels, wore a diaper, and would typically go all over the toilet. After she passed in the house under professional care. My family cleaned out the house, took the wallpaper down, cleaned the place spotless, because we were going to move in the next month or two. About a week after we finished cleaning, we went back to make sure everything was good. We get to the bathroom my grandma used, and there was literal shit everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, behind the shower curtain. Literally the entire bathroom was essentially coated. Freaked me out, because I knew it had to be my grandma. No burst pipes or anything wrong with the plumbing. Second story, we ended up moving in after the situation. My parents were out of town, so my brother and I had some friends over. We were in the basement playing Magic the Gathering when I went upstairs to grab everyone drinks. In line of sight from the fridge was the TV in our family room. Out of nowhere, the TV turns on full volume to the show The Commissioner, which was my grandma's favorite show. She was also hard of hearing, so it being at full volume was normal for her. I freaked the duck out and ran into the basement to get my brother. We go upstairs and the TV is off, but the recliner is reclined. I shouldn't have been scared, because it had to be my grandma, but I young. We lived in that house a few more years and a few other things happened, but those two stick out to me, because they were so close to when she died. I saw a panther-sized black cat darting out of a water retention/artificial forest near a school in the desert. Logically, it shouldn't be able to survive there, but holy shit, I saw it. Animal control wouldn't let that exist. There isn't really food enough for it, and the summers get dangerously hot. If you've got black fur, must have been 4 to 5 feet long. It doesn't make sense, but I 100% saw it, and so did the friend I was with. Had my laptop in my bed just before going to sleep, not plugged in, on battery. Made an offhand comment on some website about how I wasn't scared of ghosts and didn't believe in them. Then I turned it off and went to sleep with the laptop beside me in my bed. Next morning when I try to power it on, nothing happens, but the laptop feels unusually light. That's when I realized the battery had been physically removed and placed in the kitchen. I was alone in my apartment and do not have a history of sleepwalking at all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed watching this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below.